All right. Oh, welcome everybody. Ooh. Okay. And here we go. Wibbly wobbly, but everything is good. Welcome. Congratulations to you and to me for making it here today, if you're here. And this is welcome to Painting Miniatures for Dungeons and Dragons. And we're going to be painting a giant eagle. That's our painting for today. So I'm going to go ahead and start off here. I really appreciate that you're taking the time out of your day here to just come and spend some time watching me paint and just talk about stuff while I'm doing it. So, this is the giant eagle for Pathfinder Deep Cuts, but I'm going to be using it here in my upcoming game. And I first, the first thing I noticed is there's kind of a big seam, like pretty sizable, right here, right off the bat. So turn the light up just a little bit here, and I'm going to fill that in. So let me get this perfect plastic putty. Is just handy for this kind of thing. I'm going to squeeze out a little bit of it here on my laminated plastic piece. And it's a little dry because I haven't used it in a while, but it'll work just fine. So yeah, thank you all again for being here for this painting video on Twitch. My first live stream painting video on Twitch. And that's, I don't know, maybe that's not, I may have live streamed once or twice before, but I feel like this is really the first one that I've planned and scheduled. So I'm just going to see if I can smush some of this putty just enough. It's like the first thing you do when you start painting a miniature is you look for some of the seams and fill those in. And I feel like this is the exact opposite of that. You're reverse removing a seam. You're filling in a seam. Okay. In this case. So now, that being said, there may be some seams here to look for. I always use a special tool when I find them. Although this looks really good. I don't think there might be one kind of a little bit right there. There's maybe a little bit of one right here at the top of the eagle. So I'm going to be honest, I'm not seeing any really good examples that look like they need to, oh, okay, no, okay. Right here. If you turn it just right. Yep, that's the culprit. Yeah, we're just gonna smooth the devil out of it, just like that. Alright. There's another one on this side. So this is going to be for the, ouch, the druid in our campaign when he turns 8th level. I'm a little shaky. I'm feeling a little low blood sugar, honestly. I was rushing it to get here. But I'm going to drink a little coffee. That'll help things. I kid. Okay. I feel like he's really well smoothed out. I'm not going to glue him to his base yet, and I think I'm actually going to kind of would like to replace the base altogether. He came with this one, and I kind of like this clear plastic one. Okay, well, okay, everybody. Had a chance to kind of take those burrs off a little bit, and I'm just sitting here relaxing. I got some, got a cup of coffee. I've got a little something to nibble on while I'm doing this, and I'm planning on taking about 3 hours. I'm going to be using the Nolzur's Marvelous, I don't know what to say, Nolzur's Marvelous Paints. The D&D line. And I'm going to be honest, what I'm going to plan on doing is really just following the Army Painter's step-by-step tutorial on painting an owl bear. And when I look at like a picture of an eagle, it looks very similar to that of an owl bear. And so the top of its feathers, oh, I think there might be one other. No. I see one other kind of like mold line, maybe like right here on the eagle's face. But I'm not gonna let it stop me from what I'm doing. Yeah, the eagle's feathers and the back feathers are brown, and these feathers are white, and the head is white. And then they've got like some meaty, kind of fleshy stuff, and then the talons here. Ooh, there's one more little. Just gonna smooth that little mold line right out with my little tool here. Just smooth it on out. There you go. Just can't even tell it was ever there. Okay. That's that. Oh, there's a little burr right here. We'll go ahead and take care of it. All right. So yeah, this giant eagle is for a druid in my party. When they turn 8th level, they're a little halfling druid. So I looked up the kind of the stats on the druid, and this is kind of a rite of passage, right? Like turning into a giant eagle is like getting your driver's license for a druid. I feel like you're finally able to fly the friendly skies. You don't have to stay on the ground as like a grizzly bear anymore. Free to roam about the sky. Okay, so I'm using these D&D's Marvelous Pigments, and I'm going to start with, I'll try to keep from hitting the table, and this is my wet palette here. And I use this wet palette to keep the paints from going dry as I'm using them. So we're going to start with an Owl Bear Brown. And I'm going to put each of these kind of out on the palette a little bit at a time. I thought since, it was an official Dungeons and Dragons live stream that we could I've kind of got my notes over here on the side so that I can kind of keep track with what I'm doing. And I'm going to start with the Bugbear Brown, and I'm going to use a little Yug Brown on those fleshy parts. Like I said, this is exactly what Army Painter used for their Owl Bear. Sorry, I'm dying. Orc skin is going to go on the white feathers at first, followed by some Cambion crimson, and on the tongue, Abyssal Black for the talons, Lawful White to highlight feathers and eyes, Ruddy Skin to highlight flesh tones. Going to give them a couple washes. We got two different washes we're going to use. We're going to use the Flesh Wash, and we're going to use the Brown Wash. And then highlight again with some fair skin. The eyes, we're going to use Fire Newt Orange. Finally, we're going to need a little Pixie Dust Pink to highlight the tongue, and a little Angelic Yellow. Let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do, got my paint on the palette, and I'm going to use a drop of water to just kind of thin it down just a little bit. I'm going to grab a brush that I can get some coverage with. This is just an old Craft Smart number 4. Stir things up in here. Just kind of looking, always just kind of looking for a nice consistency, kind of like a milkshake, a melted milkshake. And like I said, we've already kind of picked out which colors are going where. And so we're just going to use some nice thin coats of paint here. It's very watery. I'll be honest, it's been several years since I've used these paints, and I really should shake them up a little bit. But that's okay. We can just use it as it is. It's nice because it's actually kind of bringing out the details on the feathers. And I don't know if we're going to get all the way through painting this giant eagle today, but we're going to try. It would be great if we can, especially because the D&D game is coming up again soon, so it's always nice to have those minis on hand when your players want to use their special powers. They want to turn into an eagle as the DM. I know that you want to make the game as memorable as you can for your players, so you want to have these kinds of things on hand. For when they use their abilities, they use their magic spells. So yeah, Rangers can turn into a giant eagle at level 8, and they also have some other animals that they can change into as well, like the bear, and they can only shape change once. Twice before taking a short rest, I believe. Until you get to higher levels. Level 20, you can shape change as much as you want to, whenever you want to. So that's nice as an arch druid to be able to do that. So, and I feel like, watching the Dungeons and Dragons movie, like the druid in that movie almost had to have been an arch druid because of the rate that they were shifting their wild shaping. So, it's getting a little thick. I like how this is going on. It's definitely allowing a lot of the detail to still be seen, but I'm already out of paint. So I'm going to have to mix up a little more here. So I'm going to take this opportunity to shake it up. Have a bite of this. It's a Mott's apple strudel, soft apple strudel. They're pretty good. I don't know. I eat like a hobbit, I tell you. Okay. You can see how thick the paint is. And so just a little drop of water is not going to hurt. So, I hope this is definitely a lot thicker this time. Not quite getting the coverage that I was before with this. That's all right. Just going to blend it right in. Thin coats are ideal. That way you're not covering up any of the details, and it helps to be able to see those when you're painting those miniatures. Have so many good details. There's a fly. That if the paint's too thick, it can easily cover it. So keeping your layers of paint nice and thin really does help. So, yeah. Druids, I feel like a lot of times, I hope I'm trying to play this delicate balance of staying in the camera. With druids, and staying in the camera, not bumping the table as I'm working here, which I have the camera mounted to, of course. What was I saying? Druids are nature beings, right? Like, they worship in Dungeons and Dragons what is known as, I believe, the Old Faith, for the most part, which is like the power of nature is sort of a god in its own accord, and they have this sort of like stigma that people are constantly saying, like, oh, they don't want to, druids can't use metal, and that's, as I was kind of like reading the lore a little bit about druids, I'm not sure. I'd like to hear, some thoughts on it, but I kind of need somebody to discuss this with. They use things like sickles. And a sickle, in my opinion, no matter what you do, is probably going to have like a metal blade. Maybe a stone? I don't know. That's stretching it. But which really implies, yeah, their armor is of course going to be made, like they'll want leather armor. But I don't see anything that's super implied. I mean, they want to use things that are made from mistletoe and oak and yew, and these things are, sacred to the druids, or to druids. Maybe not all druids. They're saying like different druids might have different things that they hold value in, but these woods that you find in the forests, if a druid's of the forest and the woods, then they'll know the wood to use for certain things based on what it's being used for. Like, and this is just for instance, like this is not straight from the book, but there is something similar to this in the book. Like if you're like a druid who is making something that's going to be used as a weapon, like a dagger, and you're gonna use for the handle on it, you're gonna want to use something that maybe it's a type of wood that's known for being related to death, because you're making a dagger with it, right? You're going to use that as a weapon, not for maybe if you're going to use it as like a ceremonial dagger, then you might use a wood that has arcane properties or is known for its arcane nature, such as the mistletoe or the sage. And again, that's not from the book. I mean, whatever. There are actual plants that are listed to the druids, I suppose, as being for certain purposes, or as a dungeon master, make it up yourself. Your players are going to buy into it no matter what, I'm sure. Especially if you go to the trouble of thinking it out a little bit ahead of time. All right. And with the base coats, it's pretty easy to just kind of throw down the paint as you can here. There's no need to be shy. Get it all painted, and maybe go back after it dries just a little bit to see where it's shrunk down, and maybe retouch it a little bit. Paint actually shrinks. Acrylic paint, for sure, shrinks as it dries. As the water recedes, the plastic pigments bonded together. Plastic and the pigments bonded together sort of recede a little bit. Okay. That makes it shrink. All right. So that was that first layer of Owl Bear Brown, and this is where come back in and maybe do a second thin coat just one more time. And this is all going to get covered up, so it's all going to look good at the end, I hope. But these thin layers of paint really allow you to be able to see the details and not And not just the streaky effects when you put down that first coat. You can see here. Yeah. So, as a druid, also, yeah, I think it's kind of a misunderstood property that they can't use metal at all. I think they can, they just don't like to. And I want to be honest, I've never played a druid, but I think that it's a fascinating class and a popular one in Dungeons and Dragons as well. People love druids, of course. When I think of druids, I think of Caliph and Critical Role. One of the first druids I ever really came across, honestly. I mean, I knew of druids, but in Dungeons and Dragons I had not had a chance to see one played until watching Critical Role. What a magical era we can live in now, where people can play D&D tabletop thousands of miles away from you, and you can join in like you're right there with them. Okay. All right. We got one person here with us, and I just want to reach out and say thank you to you for being here. I really appreciate you, and I'm sure it's a friend. I'm sure it's a good friend, just showing their support. And I wish, you know what? I feel like I need to be that kind of friend. All right. Now we're going to move to, next up is the fleshy parts. I'm going to put some of this Otyugh brown out. Okay, that's more than enough, I'm sure. And a couple little drops of paint. Or water. Not to blend it too much here, but I'm going to use a little bit smaller brush. A slightly smaller brush, I think, would be perfect. See as I bring out all my brushes, but I want something with a little reach. There it is. Yeah? Yeah. Small and compact and perfect for getting into those hard to reach spaces. It's my target brush, my 2-0 target brush. Brag on these all the time. The Target that I live next to in my old apartment had a Target right next door to it. And I was painting minis one night. I went over to Target. There's this little pack of brushes on the clearance shelf. Somebody had opened them up, and they were not marked as for costs. I think it's missed a couple spots right here with the brown, but that's okay. I've got a little out on the ballot still, but I was surprised that just what I needed was waiting right there for me at the Target. So I picked them up and I took them to the, the customer service lady. Yeah. And, I asked, hey, do you know how much these are? And, gosh, I must be getting old because I feel like I've told this story before on air. my YouTube channel, but the lady was like, I don't know, $1? I was like, yeah, absolutely, I'll buy that for $1. And I did. Like I said, I think the best dollar I think I ever spent. So I'm just trying to kind of paint these fleshy parts here as best as I can. And you don't have to be ultra precise when you're putting down the base coats, but the one thing I like to say is the colors, if you know the way that they interact, then you know how certain opposites can cancel each other out. And you have to be aware of those, For instance, a lot of times the base coats or the primer base coats of black actually have a little touch of blue. So if you're using a green, that can slightly alter the hue. Okay. I'm not sure how much more I can get in there. And then go ahead and get my owl bear brown out again. And just get a little out, just to kind of touch up some of those spots that need it. Water that down again, just a little bit. Oh, boy. That's kind of a stiff bristle brush there. Okay. I probably forgot to take the soap out of it. Sometimes I'll put the brush cleaner soap on there and then just kind of let it sit. So that it's kind of back to its original brush self again the next time I use it. Got some nature sounds on in the background here to inspire me to continue this work for my druid friend. I'm trying to get a little better about keeping in the middle of the camera here as best as I can. Sometimes it's hard to focus when you're painting on what you're doing. I'm not too worried about these places because the wash is going to fill those in more, but it's good to have a good solid base coat. It's one of the must-dos. Okay. Now, I'm going to use orc skin. So I just use the oat yolk brown to make the fleshy bits here on his legs. They're still a little wet. I'm going to use this on the white feathers. I'm going to shake it up good because, like I said, I haven't used these in a while. And just like you might know already, it's good to start with a really dark color and then you can build up from there with your highlights. I'm gonna get a nice, like a number 2 here. Number 2 golden maple. Find these on Amazon. I'm sure they're probably not too expensive. They're not going to break the bank, these golden maple brushes, and they're perfect for miniature painting. I don't know how much I paid for them, but I saw them on a... Sorry, I'm just watching the cat. I saw them on a special here, and Whizzles, what are you doing? Whistles, what are you doing? I'm trying to figure out if it's an activity I need to stop. Oh yeah, Whistles, no, absolutely. Hey, no. Go. Oh, she's a good cat, but she was in the middle of eating the this paper that I use here is like a parchment paper, and she was just in the middle of having it for a snack. And this layer of parchment paper over top of a sponge is really what creates the wet palette that I'm using. These are dry enough, I think. So, I had to say no. No, kitty, that's a bad kitty. She just wants to be on the live stream. We all know that. Cats just want to be on camera, in laps, and on the internet. The internet is like where cats feel most at home. It's so hard to be doing something, streaming to the internet without a cat wanting to be involved. Right? Am I right? Okay. Put a little... This is orc skin, I believe. Put a little orc skin here on Mr. Eagle. Yep, I'm just trying to make sure you get good coverage. You don't have to get it all the first time, but if you're ideally putting on thin coats, eventually they'll build up to where you need them to be. Thin coats. Again, shout out to my viewer. I really appreciate you. If it wasn't for you, I'd be schizophrenic. I I gotta say, I appreciate you keeping my mental health in check here. Be just talking to myself. Oh, so just I think that's about the end of the first coat. Yeah. And I'm kind of seeing like a little fleshy bit in here too. That's not quite. Yeah, it's not quite the beak. So I am going to hit that when I go back for my second coat. Put this in. Okay. All right. So far, so good. What's next? Well, that's a great question. What's next is a little retouch with the Oat Yug Brown. Here in these areas. Definitely requiring a little touch. And then that smaller area that I mentioned. This is just, boy. It's right around the beak here. I'm going to really use a small brush to do that. So I think, yeah, the Winsor Newton Zero brush. This is not usually my base coating brush. This is like a more of a blending painting brush. But in this case, Willow, what you doing over there? Hey, no. No, no, no. No, give me that. That is no. Oh my gosh. Oh, Willow. Horrible. So yeah, these are my my painting palette sponges. Unbelievable. Just disappointed. So disappointed. Do better, Willow. Come on. Do better. Sorry about that. I'm sorry that you all had to witness that. All one of you. But possibly more later. Okay, so yeah, I'm just gonna get around right here. It's just this little area of flesh. Okay. And then a little more. So these areas, these raised areas, are not getting the pigment that they need. So it's just a little watery, but that's okay. Just got to get some paint down into some of these little cracks and crevices. Yeah. Okay. Maybe a second coat. On the beak. Okay. All right. Now. Yeah. To go in and do the tongue, I'm going to put the Cambium Crimson in on his tongue first because it's easier to put the black down over top of it all on the beak. Or, I'm sorry. I think for, yeah, I think for the beak, they actually have more of an orange beak. And I apologize because I had like a little a reference photo here when I was setting up for painting tonight. I had my reference photo all put aside, being responsible. I was going to show it to you. And the minute I started the stream, I looked over and realized it was nowhere to be seen. Go figure. All right, like I said, it's been a while since I've used some of these paints, and this crimson is a little dry. A little dried out. Let me try shaking it one more time. All right. Boy, that's a lot. So much more than I ever needed. You know what, though? That's all right. God. If I do 50 base coats on this bird's tongue, I will use all of it. There you go. Yummy. Now, it's easy to look at that and go, what's going on with that bird? Right? Looks like he's got a mouthful of blood. But no, it'll be all right. It'll be all right. Just bear with us. Stick it out. Trust the process. Is what I'm saying here. Okay. Next up is the talons. I'm going to use a little of this Abyssal Black to kind of put on the talon. Oh, It's like Play-Doh. Boy, that's been forever since it's been used. That's gonna need some water. At least. Possibly a toothpick. Let's see. Oh boy. Nice and chunky. Okay, kids, use your paints. Don't just let them sit up and dry. Or they'll get like this. Clotted. Disgusting. But I think I mixed it up pretty good now. That's where it needs to be. Okay. Okay, we're gonna do a little nail work here. A pedicure. Oh, this black. It's so old. Okay. Honestly, I need to switch brushes a little bit here. That one is not working out. Definitely not getting the kind of coverage I need. Yeah, this black is really giving me a run for my money. Shake it up a little more here. See what we can do. Like I said, I plan on finishing this in just a few hours tonight, but ugh. Oh, I probably need to throw this away. I say that as I continue searching for ways to stir it. This is ridiculous. It's like the oil from the X-Files. So, yeah, you gotta paint these little things for your players. I feel like it just makes it meaningful to them to have these things. Not that you have to. You can play any way that you want to play, right? Theater of the mind works just fine. You don't need to use miniatures at all. You can. I think it makes the game more exciting for me personally. But when I really started to enjoy playing Dungeons and Dragons, gosh, it was shortly after. There was kind of a couple things going on at the time. One of them was video games. I was really into video games. And it's funny because the video games that I was playing had obviously been inspired by Dungeons and Dragons. I feel like there's no doubt that Dragon Quest and maybe not Legend of Zelda, but Final Fantasy? Dragon Warrior, Final Fantasy? Like, I feel like they were inspired by Dungeons and Dragons. And those weren't the only games that I was into at the time, but um, you know, I had played Dragon Quest on Nintendo. And when I finished it, it was kind of like, well, this is a huge undertaking. And I felt like I needed anything else besides another similar game. But a friend of mine was playing Final Fantasy on the Nintendo, and he invited me over to hang out. And then, like, they played Final Fantasy while I was there. And I remember seeing him hop in the airship and like take off. And I thought, as much as I really don't want to play another Dragon Quest, Dragon Warrior-esque game, that has to be the absolute coolest bunch of bananas I have ever seen. So I started playing Final Fantasy. And I didn't regret it. Taking way too long on these talents. Okay. So I started playing Final Fantasy, and right, like I said, a lot of the monsters in Final Fantasy, I mean, I feel like they were D&D monsters, ogres. I'm not saying that Final Fantasy and Dungeons and Dragons need to compete for monsters, but I was like, who's or who's, but I mean, they can both have cool monsters, but they're very similar. I was just playing the latest Final Fantasy, and they had you fighting a Mind Flayer. Classic Dungeons and Dragons monster. So, I'm not trying to fight the fight on which one is better, video games or tabletop role-playing games, but they really video games led me to tabletop role-playing games. If I hadn't had the experience with games like Final Fantasy, I remember, my brother's friends had come over one day to play Dungeons and Dragons. And I wasn't at all interested. I was like, yeah, not really my age group of friends, and I don't know. It sounds silly. Roll some dice. I mean, come on, that's what the video game systems are for, and I'm playing video games, and Final Fantasy led me to games like Phantasy Star. And when I was talking it over with my brother's friends, it seemed like they were saying, the same thing that I'm saying now is like, all these games that you're playing have their their start, have their origin in Dungeons and Dragons. This was how, these friends were talking me into playing. And I kind of had to agree with them after a while. I'm just like, yeah, I guess, okay, all right. See what you're saying here. Dungeons and Dragons started back in 1977 by Gary Gygax. Okay, much older than Final Fantasy, much older than Phantasy Star. So I gave it a try. And I don't know, I to this day, I can't tell you really what the plot to the campaign was. I'm sure there was like an overarching story, but I'm not sure what it was. And it didn't really matter. It was just sitting around, having a good time, playing games with friends, rolling dice, eating pizza. I remember so succinctly the bag of chips, right? Like, it's like that memory will never fade. Because it was like fall, right? It was around fall. And there was like monster themed bags of chips. It was like Doritos had Frankenstein on them. And I just remember like this bag of Doritos getting me through it. Just getting me through the day. This snack was just really handy. This was like a movie. I remember playing D&D, and it was like you didn't want to miss anything. So even when you were taking a break for a minute, like getting food from the kitchen, you still wanted to hear what was going on. And nobody wanted to stop the progress. So you just kept playing. And you felt like you were getting somewhere if you kept playing. And so, yeah, it was our first campaign, and we had minis. And my character's name was Sir Orakio. And I chose that name because of my fondness for Phantasy Star. Phantasy Star 3 had just come out. And I was right in the middle of playing it on the Sega Genesis. And I think a part of me was like, having such a good time with Phantasy Star on the Sega Genesis. Like, I bought the Sega Genesis for Phantasy Star and Sonic the Hedgehog. But Sonic the Hedgehog actually wasn't out yet when I bought a Genesis, or it was just coming out. It had just come out. And that was I will admit, that was definitely another reason for it. But okay. As I'm getting a little closer to these talons, I'm seeing, could use a little work here. I'm having a tough time with them. Getting these little fleshy talons painted. So I'm going to go back again. Yeah, I really think it's important to have a good base coat. So I'm going to go back, and I'm definitely seeing some areas in here where I got a little overzealous with the black. Or I hadn't quite finished putting the base coat down at all. these little feet nodules. Giving me a run for my Monday. Okay. Takes a little concentration and fine motor skills sometimes. Okay. All right, now for the beak, I'm going to use the orange, the Fire Newt orange. Oh, I see another little seam line. You see, I saw it there, and I knew I saw it, and I said, forget it. But now that it's getting painted, of course, it's very hard to ignore, because the paint kind of heaps up on those seam lines, and yeah, makes it pretty obvious. Pretty obvious where those seams are. Okay. All right. Fire Newt orange. Again, these have been not used in forever, so definitely going to take some shaking. It's the kind of work you got to put in. Paint minis. All right. Go back to this friend. I'm not even going to water it down here, even though I really should. But I'm going to use this in two places. On his beak. And his eyes. See how this works here. Okay. So there's his beak. And then in this case, I feel like I need to do a little something first. I'm going to use some very watered down black. Okay. I just kind of got like a little black wash now. put that in there. And just kind of darken them up just a little bit. There we go. Okay. Now, while that is drying, I'm going to take another crack here. At these feet that are giving me such a hard time when it comes to getting any color on them. It's not going to be like this forever. Once I get to the wash stage, which we're pretty much at, it's like base coat, washes, highlights, the flow of progress, the order of operations. We're almost there. Okay. All right. Bloop. Looking good. A little shaky on some of my base coating here. I'm going to say that I was being distracted. There was a fly. I feel like there's always a fly. Okay. I don't know why there's always a fly. I guess I'll die. Such delicate work. I'm gonna get on my Egon Spangler goggles here, and I'm really gonna try to paint that eyeball. But it is teeny tiny. Okay, this is going to take several coats. Like I said, there's a little interaction between the black and the blue, and I really should have painted those eyes white before putting down the yellow. Okay, and I think I'm actually going to use this opportunity as well to just get in under his beak there. Okay. All right. All right. So that's where we're at. All right. And that's pretty much the end of the base coating. All right. Next up. Ooh, thank you for staying with me here. It's been almost an hour. I think we're actually going to get this in time. So I'm going to use a little of this Lawful White. And I'm going to put this down. Some reason when what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to use it to do the edge highlighting on the talons. I remember that when I'm streaming with Twitch sometimes, it has a really difficult time focusing the camera. I remember it always going in and out of focus. And I don't know why it does it, but it did it with my other phone. And apparently it does it with this one as well. But I'll tell you this, you're getting the full experience because it is almost as hard, I feel like, for me to, it's almost the same as it is for me right now, right? Like, it's tough for me to focus. Okay. I need to re-wet this brush and try these one more time. This paint is super, super thick. I'm not sure if that's helping or hindering. That got a little bit out of control. Yeah, looks horrible. Unbelievable. So I'm gonna have to come back in with some black. Oh. Not as bad. Okay. Now, it is time to put a little of the flesh wash out. I'm going to get the flesh wash here. Flesh washer. And the flesh wash is going to go on the brown and the orange. Or I'm sorry, orange, yellow, and light brown, which basically we're just going to put on the beak right here. Just trying my best to really get it down into the nooks and crannies. It's okay if it gets beat up. A little beat up by all this extra wash color here. I don't know why I see Twitch when I'm recording just with the camera. It's not constantly doing the autofocus like it is here. But I don't know what to do other than maybe not stream to Twitch anymore. I don't know. And just stream to YouTube. Is that what I should do? I don't know. I just don't know what to do. It sucks because it's like on one hand, I'm like, well, if it keeps constantly zooming in, then it's going to get the best picture. On the other hand, like, it's kind of annoying. I mean, it's not bad for me, but if it's bad for you, my friends, then I need to know. Okay, so that was a flesh wash, and then I'm going to use the brown wash on the brown stuff. Okay, so the brown wash is going all over the brown wings. Oh boy. So I'm going to use a nice brush with some good coverage. Once I find one. This one has excellent coverage. I'm going to soak that whole thing up in one go. And I'm just going to use it to apply this wash on the wings. This is my favorite part. Here we go. It's a party. Oh, so fun. This is where the magic happens. Skill in a pot is what they call washes because they are so great at making you look professional. I just love them. I'm going to go ahead and put that all over the gray as well as the brown. I'm just going to try to keep it moving so that it doesn't pile up. Just need it down in the nooks and crannies, wherever you can get it. But you don't want to let it get too out of control. Just keep it moving. Move along. Move along. Maybe a little more. Okay, so now this brown wash, just one of the best. Just one of the best. Does a great job. I feel like there's a lot of different brown washes. It doesn't matter what kind you use, but they always just make the magic happen, in my opinion. The sepia shade is really good as well. Any kind of a brown wash. You definitely need one in your bag of tricks. But especially for these feathers, nothing else gets the job done quite like this particular color of wash. This Army Painter one's great. Vallejo has a great one as well. It doesn't matter if you get brown wash or sepia wash, but like I said, this is gonna just make a huge difference in the level of your miniature painting. Okay, now sometimes I feel like the brush gets a little brummed up. The brush gets a little gummed up after a while of working, and you got to go back and wash it out. And that's a perfect time to kind of reestablish your paints if you're running low on them. And the water in the brush really helps to keep the paint flowing in the way that you want it to. Oops. Here we go. Yeah, that's a good wash. And yeah, it's just a very thin, syrupy layer of paint. You can make your own, but the formula that they have, provided in these bottles of wash is just perfect for getting down into the crevices. And then they've even made, like the contrast paints, Citadel now, where the washes have a different color when they break. In the areas that, get the least paint, they have a color, and that's a different one from the colors that get down into here, into these deep grooves. So yeah, I like those contrast paints as well. Whatever saves you time, whatever gets the job done, is what I believe you should be doing. All right, not much left for me to hold on to at this point. Not a lot left to hold on to. But I need to get those back tail feathers just a little bit. So this would be actually a really good time for me to let this dry. So why don't I set this aside for just a second, and I'm just going to put it over here next to my fan for just a second to blow on it, and I think it should be good. Yeah, not quite dry yet, but it's coming along. Okay, I'm going to grab him by his feet here. Found my place. Oh, you know what? Before I do that, just a little more. I'm really going through it here. Oh, I think this should be enough. Just to get down in here. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Now, that the base coats and the wash is done, we just got to let it dry. Now it's just all about letting it just sit up for a minute here. I'm going to take this opportunity. I think I need just a little more, actually. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm going to leave this guy here for just a moment in the fan. That should be okay. All right.